everyone, thanks for joining me again. If you've watched my most recent uploaded video, it was a video about long distance relationship. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Today's video is basically going to be my 5 top tips about surviving or just being in a long distance relationship and making it work. Before I get started, I figured I'd talk a little bit about my experience being in a long distance relationship. So firstly, I have been kind of in an on and off long distance relationship for about 6 years. I've been with my boyfriend for 6 years and we've been on and off long distance relationship for about 6 years. We've been apart, but we've also been together for some period of time. So we met in high school and we were together for about 5 months before he finally had to leave and went back to Japan. From there, we did long distance relationship. It was a pretty short amount of time. We did LDR for about 5 months. That was the first time I'd ever been in a long distance relationship. And it was actually really hard, especially because we were a new relationship and we didn't really know each other that well. After we had done LDR for about 5 months, my boyfriend came back in December for Christmas and we spent about, I think it was either 1 or 2 weeks together. And then we did another large chunk. This time it was 8 months apart. Before we could meet in person again. So after that 8 months, Rick came back to the United States. He was finally finished with high school. So I was in my first year of university and Rick had finally finished high school. And that's when he decided that he wanted to move back to get his education in the United States. So we went from being in an LDR across countries to being in LDR across cities. So at that point, I was going to school at a university in Arizona in Tucson, and he was going to community college in Florence, Arizona. For anyone who doesn't know, that's about a 1 hour and 15-minute drive from each other. So it was nothing like our long distance relationship, me being in the US and him being in Japan, where it was so expensive to get a plane ticket and the flight was so long. And so this time we were visiting each other more frequently. I would say Rick and I visited each other about, I want to say once a month, so pretty frequently. After my boyfriend had finished his 2 years at community college, finally the long distance had stopped for both of us. So in 2017, so let's see, we'd been together for about 2 years at that point. Rick went from Florence, Arizona, and he started going to community college in Tucson. And so I was going to university in Tucson and he was going to community college in Tucson. So we were able to live together and that was great. It was the first time that we were living together, and that had its own challenges just because I feel like moving in with anyone, you kind of learn new and different things about each other. So that was a struggle in the very beginning. But so we had the opportunity to live together for about 1.5 years. After he had finished 2.5 years in community college, he finally moved to a university to complete his undergraduate. And so then we went from me being into Tucson to him moving up to Phoenix. So then we were doing long distance relationship in state again for about, I want to say 5 to 6 months. Then we were visiting each other frequently too. We were seeing each other about once every month to once every 2 months. It just depended. And I mean, I think we were together about 3 to 4 years at that point. So it was a little less difficult, especially after living together for, 1.5 years. We definitely knew each other better. We understood each other better. So it was a lot easier to see him go to Phoenix and me stay in Tucson. When Rick moved to Phoenix, I only had about half a year left at university. So I graduated and then I ended up getting a job up in Phoenix. So we did that 5 months apart, and then we ended up moving back in together, but this time in Phoenix. And again, we were together for a year and a half. So like I said, we've never really had like a solid chunk of time that's longer than 2 years living together. We've mostly been like on and off LDR, but I mean, I'm grateful because I know that a lot of long distance relationship couples have been apart for, for as long as Rick and I have been together, for 6 years, and have not been able to meet and have still been going strong. So good for you. I think that would be very hard for me. So I'm just like really grateful that Rick and I have had the circumstances that we've had. Meanwhile, in between these, like, moving here and moving there, Rick has also went back and forth to Japan for summer vacations. He had this one coming of age ceremony, which they do in Japan, so he was gone for either it was a couple weeks or it was like a month that he was gone. Usually when he'd leave for the summer, it'd be for about 2.5 months. I've just been told by like my friends or like family members that if they had to be apart from their boyfriend or their girlfriend for 2 months, that would be difficult in itself. It is kind of difficult, but at the same time, I knew that Rick would be coming back, so it wasn't terribly hard to think about. Currently, my boyfriend recently just left to go back to Japan. I'm planning on going to Japan, but I don't know when because of COVID. But so far we have been apart for about 2 months. So he left in November of 2020, and it is now February. It's the end of February 2021. So it's almost been 3 months that we've been apart. Our anniversary was just now. We've been together for 6 years, so this long distance has been a lot easier than some of my past LDR, especially the ones in the very beginning where we were apart for 5 months and 8 months. 8 months is the longest we've ever been apart, so I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, I'm sure that Rick and I will still be together at the end of it. But yeah, long story, but it's just showing like, what Rick and I have been through, how, because every situation is different. So our LDR story is a little different. And if you're in the same situation as me, you may find these tips helpful. Okay, so that was a lot. Let's get into what I think are my 5 biggest tips to surviving a long distance relationship. So, number 1, I think that communication is one of the biggest things that will help you to get through a long distance relationship. And the best way, so I was thinking about this and I was thinking the best way to explain how to deal with communication would be like the Goldilocks effect. So like too much communication can be bad, and too little communication can also be bad. If you talk too much, there can be instances of being annoyed with each other, clinginess, like someone is going to need space from you. Sometimes you just need space. It's like you are apart from each other, but you still need your personal time, your personal space. So when you think about it, it's hard for me to tell you what works best for you because you're your own couple, just like I'm my own couple. But once you've been dating for a certain amount of time, you'll start to know what is too much and what is too little. For my boyfriend and I, our Goldilocks is usually talking on the phone at least once a night. If we can't talk on the phone at least once a night, I just ask that he texts me just to let me know what he's doing and how he is. But usually once a night. If you're like in different countries, you have to find that certain time that works for both of you. I remember, so for Rick and I, it's usually a 4-hour difference. So right now it's about like 3 p.m. If I count up by 4, it's gonna be 7 a.m. in Japan right now. I believe it's a 16-hour difference. So right now I wouldn't call because Rick doesn't wake up super early in the morning. So that would just be really annoying of me to call him at 7 a.m. So I usually wait. We usually talk around 10 p.m. here, so that would be 2 p.m. there. So that's more convenient for both of us because I'm not busy at 10 p.m. and he's usually not busy at 2 p.m. So you have to find what works best for you based on where each of you are living, and how far you're living, and how much communication you need versus how much you need to be away from each other. Also, I feel like being consistent is really good. So like I said, Rick and I talk once a night. That's consistent. Monday through Sunday, we usually talk around the same time. I can expect when he's gonna call me. And then if you guys are from different countries and you don't speak the same language, but for example, my boyfriend can speak English, I can speak English, but he can also speak Japanese. I can't speak Japanese. In the very beginning, Rick was just learning how to speak English. So for us, communicating a lot was really, really good. It helped his English to become better. So it really just depends on you guys. You know your relationship better than anyone else, so it's up to you guys to decide how often you want to communicate. I just feel like communication is really important because it makes your relationship stronger and it helps each of you to know what's going on in each other's lives. Tip number 2. I think it's really important to plan to meet. Since Rick and I started dating, before he had even left, we had sat down and we had talked about what we wanted from each other. We came to the conclusion that we wanted to stay together, so the next logical thought was, well, when are we going to be able to see each other next? So for us, we didn't really know, but we had talked a little bit about planning to meet, and we ended up meeting in December of that year for Christmas, basically. I just think having a plan to meet your partner is really important because it's something for you to look forward to and it's something for you to work towards, where it's more like it's a more concrete feeling. Whereas like if you had no plan to meet, you would constantly be wondering about when you're gonna meet, and it would just lead to thoughts about, oh, is this relationship gonna work? And I feel like that's not going to lead to a strong, healthy relationship, especially if you're, long distance. And I feel like this is kind of a dumb point, but when you finally meet, you should actually do something. Like, I don't know if other couples, long distance relationship couples, when they meet, they don't do anything, but Rick and I have always done something when we've met. So we would go on vacations, within Arizona. We would go for hikes, or we would go out on dinner dates to like a pizza place, Grimaldi's. We would go shopping together. Basically what I'm saying is if your significant other travels either 1 hour or thousands of miles away to come see you, you should plan to do something. Like, don't sit at home together and do nothing, because I just feel like that's a waste of your time and you can't really create strong, lasting memories just sitting in bed together. Like, yes, definitely, like, spend that time together. But I also feel like you should go out and do something, make memories together, have adventures together. I think for Rick and I, it has made us closer and it has given us more memories to look back on together. So just to end this little section here, just plan to meet, even if it takes a year, even if it takes 5 years, plan to meet. Okay, tip number 3, gift giving. So I think that gift giving is pretty important. I know that sounds like really materialistic, but just hear me out, okay? So, gift giving I feel like is important because A, it gives you some kind of tangible item that helps you or lets you think about, the person that you're missing. And B, I feel like it's important because it just kind of shows that like they're thinking about you and you're special to them because they're thinking about you. You're always on their mind. Also, gift giving doesn't have to be expensive. It could literally be anything. Gift giving, in my opinion, is pretty important. It just gives you something to hold on to, and it lets you know that, hey, that person is thinking about you and they care about you. You don't have to send gifts all the time. It's not like a requirement, obviously. Like, it could just be once in a while. It could be randomly. Most often we will send gifts for birthdays or for holidays, especially Valentine's Day. It really just depends on you. But I just think that gift giving is, it's overlooked, and that it can be an important thing in a relationship when it comes down to it. Tip number 4. So fighting, it's something that's going to happen in any relationship. You're going to fight about everything. You're going to fight about anything. It's something that I personally think is healthy for a relationship. Obviously, if you're fighting all the time, maybe not, but a fight every once in a while can be good. It can be important and healthy in a relationship. It just lets the other person know how you're feeling and what you're thinking. If you were to bottle in all of your feelings, if you were never to have a fight, honestly, you're either in a super relationship or you're just scared to tell each other how you really feel. And I don't think that you should hold it in. I think, like I said, I think fights are important. They're gonna happen. So it's important to know what to do when you have those fights. In general, I think that fighting is hard in relationships, but for a long distance relationship, it can be hard because you're not with each other. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't see their facial expressions or the body language or the sound of their voice when you're having these fights. What I think is important when it comes to fighting is resolving the fight. So for me, my style of fighting is a lot different from my boyfriend. I'm the type of person where if we have a problem, I want to deal with it right then and there. Whereas he's the type of person, he wants to just let it go, sleep on it, and then, the next day or however many days that he needs, he wants to then bring it up and resolve it. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that it does not matter about what style you have, whether you're like me and you want to take it on right away, or if you're like him and you want to sit on it. What I think is more important is that there is a conclusion, that you have come to some kind of middle ground. Because if you don't, and one person is left feeling like they're not heard, or one person is the winner in the fight, I think it can lead to resentment for one another. So just think about that. If you're having a fight and you're dragging it out and you're holding on to it, just think like it would be so much better in the long run just to hear each other out and just end it there, because you have too many days, spent apart from each other. Why not just use those days, as being happy with each other and just cherishing like the time that you do spend, because there's such little time that you actually spend together. When you have a fight, it just comes down to, would you rather spend that time fighting with each other, or would you rather spend that time, just building a strong relationship, having those good moments, those good memories together? So you're gonna fight. If you're gonna fight, just think about, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with that? I personally think it's important to resolve the fight, to come to some kind of conclusion. It's my last tip. Tip number 5, almost did a 4. Tip number 5 is to just hold on to hope about your relationship. I think in long distance relationship, it's hard to see the future. It's hard to see what's gonna happen in the long run. Especially like during this time of COVID, Rick and I made a bunch of plans about what we were gonna do in the future. He was gonna end school. I was going to go onto this English teaching job in Japan, and we were going to live together, and we were planning our future in Japan together. We were supposed to be living together now, but because of COVID, the plans have changed so dramatically. So basically, yeah, so being in a long distance relationship, it's hard to see the future. It's hard to hold on to hope in that relationship. And if you're in a new relationship, you're probably having thoughts or doubts. Is this relationship worth it? Do I want to stay in this relationship? In my experience, I've had like family members or friends or just, just outside people have judged my relationship. They've told me, oh, it's not gonna work, or wouldn't it be easier if you had just dated someone in the US? These things can happen, and they make it a lot harder for your relationship to work. They can just make the relationship a lot harder. So I think overall, yes, communication is important. Yes, resolving your fights are important. Planning to meet is important. All of these things are important, but none of them really matter if you don't have faith, if you don't have that hope that this relationship is going to make it to that end goal. So, and if you have an end goal, my end goal is to someday be married with kids, living together in the future. If you have your doubts and you don't have hope that you're going to make it to that end goal, then your relationship probably isn't going to make it. So yes, all of these tips are important, but I feel like my tip number 5, holding on to hope, is the most important, because none of it would matter without your hope in your relationship. Okay, so just to wrap things up a little bit, 5 tips that I found were useful for me when being in a long distance relationship. Communication is really important. Planning to meet with each other, that way you have something to work towards. Gift giving, because you want something to remind them of you and you want to know that they've been thinking about you. Resolving your fights, because you never want to hold on to bad feelings about one another. And number 5, just having that hope in you and your relationship that things are going to work out, even when long distance relationship feels like it's not worth it, it's not going to work out. These 5 things have really helped me to get through my long distance relationship, and I hope that they can help you too. If you like this video, please like, subscribe to my channel. There will probably be more videos about long distance relationship in the future. And leave a comment. Honestly, leave a comment if you like this video. Leave a comment if you think I've left out any details that you feel like were important helping you get through your long distance relationship. But yeah, that is all for today. My 5 tips to help you survive your long distance relationship. I will see you guys again for the next video.